I find this incredibly fascinating. The government has very deliberately and clearly articulated an agenda to prioritize innovation. They're doing much more than that.
我们连续多年国内发明专利申请量超过美国，超过日本。
如果说创新是中国发展的新引擎，那么改革就是必不可少的点火器。要采取更加有效的措施，把创新引擎全速发动起来。
Xi Jinping era is based on building a different kind of economy, of innovation, moving up the value chain, using new kind of technologies.
The key question mark, which the Chinese themselves are focused on, is can they also at the same time engineer deep reforms into China's remaining state and enterprise sector and allow sufficient headroom for its burgeoning private sector to complete that transformation.
我们推进改革的根本目的是要让国家变得更加富强，让社会变得更加公平正义，让人民生活得更加美好。
Innovation helps us solve problems that we couldn't solve before, find new solutions, build on knowledge of the past, and come up with great new ideas that we can tackle in new ways. I'm Dr. Jordan Nguyen. I'm interested to find out more about China's drive for innovation.
My name is Marianne Hotter. Protecting the environment is perhaps the single biggest issue that's facing our generation. China's making all the right noises about sustainable development. What's really happening on the ground, though?
My name is Danny Forster. I've been coming here for the last 10 years, and I have seen China become a critical leader in the global economy. But my question is, can this continue? In this episode, we discover the huge challenges facing Xi Jinping as he grapples with the economy and the environment. Can China really achieve its ambition of becoming a truly modern country by 2049? You know, we think about Chinese development as being fast and furious and intense, and they're going to have to downshift into slow and steady and more mindful. They can do it, but it's going to be definitely a change in perspective and a change in strategy.
The challenges now is China's economy has to be pretty radically transformed because China can no longer afford to be the world's low-cost producer in cheap goods.
And now China wants to create things which accrue value, technology which people are willing to pay for, a kind of international reach for its innovation, which is more appreciated. That is happening bit by bit.
Here in China's northwestern Ningxia province, some exciting innovations are underway. Jiang Guojian grew up as a farmer, but now partners with Gong Jiaqin, founder of X Aircraft, a drone company based in Guangzhou.
China has a population of 1.3 billion, and half of them are actually farmers working in the field. So anything will change the agriculture industry, will change the whole country.
For centuries, Chinese farmers have used traditional agricultural methods. That work is often labor-intensive, and the yields can be very low. As a result, innovation is desperately needed. Enter a team of innovators with a big idea. High-tech autonomous drones.
Our purpose of X Aircraft is to bring technologies to farmers which will make their job easier.
These drones, specifically designed for agricultural use by X Aircraft, can spray plants 40 times faster than humans. They're made of aeronautics-grade aluminum for durability. And, like industrial robots, they can keep going day and night.
因为你初级的工业化的话，你可以模仿其他国家的技术，或者进口其他国家的技术。但是你要实现可持续的发展的话，自己本身的创新能力要强。
You've got to move on to the next stage. The Chinese, they invest for the future. They're turning out very large numbers of people in computer science and so on.
Today, co-founder Gong Jiaqin is visiting a farm where a team of drones is treating goji berries. What makes these drones so sophisticated is that they're equipped with AI, artificial intelligence.
The main feature of this drone is it's autonomous, fully autonomous. We employ artificial intelligence to control the drone rather than human being. The key thing about artificial intelligence is while it's flying, it's also gathering data. For example, the terrain data, the plants, the severeness of the disease.
I think the AI agenda seems to be growing so quickly. There are real opportunities for us to improve livelihoods by being able to increase productivity.
在这个高新技术服务业方面，我们还有相当大的空间。它可以发展出具有不仅是全国性产品，而且可以具有全球性产品。
The AI is capable of recognizing different plant types, so the drone can target the correct ones. And what's even more impressive, by using multispectral imaging, the drone can even identify which leaves on the plant need treatment and which don't, which makes the whole technology environmentally friendly. Smart tech like this is essential not just for transforming agriculture, but the Chinese economy overall. I think what's most exciting about being in China right now is the inversion of its place in the world stage. You know, China is not an importer exclusively, they're an exporter, not just of goods, but of ideas.
Will they produce the innovation we see in Silicon Valley? Take a while, but given the centrality that this holds within Chinese government policy, don't rule it out.
Particularly in science and technology, there's no question of their ability, and they're very confident now.
The push for innovation is a central part of Xi Jinping's strategy to reform the Chinese economy.
中国经济呈现出新常态，有几个主要特点：一是从高速增长转为中高速增长；二是经济结构不断优化升级；三是从要素驱动、投资驱动转向创新驱动。
So here's a fact. The biggest producer and designer of electric vehicles in the world is China. And these modern, clean energy buses can be seen all over the country. Many of them are made here in Shanwei. This is the production line of BYD, now the largest manufacturer of electric vehicles in the world. Bus factory manager Yang Wei-zhou.
在50多个国家、200多个城市，都有我们新能源汽车的足迹。
BYD started out in 1995 with a low profile, making mobile phone batteries.
我们在03年的话，进入汽车市场的时候，我们的研发成本是投入非常之大的。同时，外界对于我们公司的话也存在着很多的一些质疑。
Innovation is exceedingly important because that's what will drive a new economy. That's what will have new kinds of products and new services that people want and that will be profitable and will upgrade the entire Chinese economy.
Back then, switching to designing electric vehicles was thought risky.
我们这边的话还是顶着非常大的压力。燃油车的话到处都是加油站，但是那个充电站的话还是相对比较少，啊。 但是的话，随着这几年的那个电动车市场的蓬勃的发展的话，这些问题也是在逐渐的得到解决。
Electric vehicle output in China is rapidly increasing. In 2012, there were just 12,552 produced, but by 2016, that had shot up to 344,000.
中国的话以前是制造型的一个国家，到现在的话变成了一个的话是创造型的一个国家。
China needs to transform into products that allow more gross margin so that workers can be paid more and the country can rise higher in its economic development.
China's reputation as the world's manufacturer is well known, but that's changing. I think they want to be not just a place where things are made, but where ideas are born. This glossy promo, showcasing a new concept in electric rail technology, typifies the kind of creativity happening in China today. What's called SkyRail is now a reality at BYD's headquarters in Shenzhen.
可以关门了吧？
This is the kind of industrial revolution Xi Jinping needs to be repeated all across China. It'll form the foundation of China's future economy.
特别是在进入经济新常态的情况下，提出了实际上我们称之为从加快发展到持续、稳定、协调发展。
Supply side structural reform deals with the fact that there is significant overcapacity in China. So you have to reduce the overcapacity, eliminate the poorer companies so they go totally out of business. And then the existing companies, which are more productive, can become profitable. The industry works.
The new normal economy poses a direct challenge, especially to those traditional industries that once powered China's economic miracle. As a filmmaker, I have traveled to factories all over China, and I can tell you it's kind of what you'd expect. Lots of manual labor, manufacturing cheaper versions of products that were designed typically outside of China. But I can also tell you that's beginning to change. Because the focus now all across the Chinese economy is encouraging creativity, to design high-value products where the Chinese companies own the intellectual property.
Moving up the value chain, using new kind of technologies, and that's a big transition.
Take, for example, BOE. It started out in the 1990s making components for foreign-designed TVs. Now, it's transformed itself into one of the world's biggest producers and designers of all kinds of screens, for TVs, tablets, even mobile phones. But transforming their business demanded an entirely new kind of thinking. 6,000 people work at BOE's Beijing base, but the factory floor is practically deserted. Here, robots do the work.
I believe that's absolutely imperative for countries like China to prioritize this innovation, because this is the wave, as some people call it, the fourth industrialization.
Managing Director Zhang Yu.
以前我们更多的是强调客观的一种市场需求在哪，实际上现在是更多的讲的就是好多需求是你要去通过挖掘，是你企业怎么样通过你的供给侧改革，你来去引领这个市场，来去创造市场。
供给侧结构性改革，首先要做加法，就是在那些短板之处、高新技术之处，要大做加法。在那些传统的已经达到了产品的高峰而后下降的那些产品方面，就要敢做减法。
These are the elements, the key elements that are needed, and you start with the economic goal of a moderately prosperous society, which is building the economy, and then comprehensive reform recognizes that not just economic reform, but a reform in all sectors.
Comprehensive development in China, it requires an integrated approach to politics, the economy, culture, society, as well as the environment. And he says we are only developing if we are advancing on all 5 fronts and not just one.
Is there a way out to a clean and green future? Anyone who's visited China knows how bad the pollution can be. China's rapid development over the last 30 years has come at the cost of great environmental problems. In the big cities, factories and cars create dense smogs, especially in the winter. Forest habitats have been destroyed by logging, damaging wildlife and causing floods and landslides.
I remember 7-8 years ago, a senior minister told me that pollution is very bad in China. We recognize it's a problem, but whenever we have to choose between development and clean environment, we have to choose development. That has changed, and it has changed because of the extreme level of pollution. It's not just a little inconvenience.
It's this cost of the last few decades of fast-paced growth President Xi is trying to reverse.
那习近平每到一个地方呢，就特别强调生态保护、绿色发展重要。比如讲在重庆讲呢，长江要搞共抓大保护，不搞大开发。
This is the Yangtze, the longest and most famous river in Asia. Around 1/5 of China's population live and work along the river. It's lined with farms and factories. In 2016, President Xi visited the Yangtze River Economic Zone to stress that the further development of the region should not be at the cost of the river.
既要金山银山，又要绿水青山，宁可要绿水青山，不要金山银山，因为绿水青山就是金山银山。
Enter the Hejiang, newly appointed custodians in President Xi's nationwide initiative to protect China's rivers.
In the past, there was only one factor. That was just economic growth. You measure it by GDP. But now it's saying, what are the key factors that China must embed in its growth?
Song Tao and Fu are county officials who have been made Hejiang, heads of the river. It's an environmental protection role.
习近平总书记对这一点是非常重视。当然，他也了解，因为他从他的生涯里面，从中国最基层一步一步往上走，他知道老百姓对环保的不好的环境的反应。
一个是感情的重要，因为我是出生在河边、生活在河边的人。
Each Hejiang has a section of river that they're responsible for. To do their jobs, the Hejiangs must understand how the entire Yangtze River basin works. Thousands of streams and feeder rivers are also a potential pollution risk. Today, the Hejiang are inspecting a factory to check it's not polluting the river. Its product? Pickled vegetables. This factory produces a lot of wastewater which outflows into the river. So the Hejiang inspects their waste treatment plants. They want to be sure that the water has been cleaned and is safe to be released into the river.
In the past was, many enterprises would have pollution equipment, but they would know when the inspector was coming. So when the inspector was coming, they turn it on, and it looks like it's okay, and as soon as he leaves, they turn it off.
Back then, Xi Jinping was based in Zhejiang province and faced the challenges and contradictions of managing growth.
Xi Jinping spent nearly 30 years of his active life as a young man on the coast of China, which are the most open provinces in China.
So you could say it was the absolute core period of his life. So I suppose it meant that earlier than most politicians of his generation, he kind of had to get this contradictory idea of being a socialist but also having markets and dealing with entrepreneurial entities.
In these heady years, his vision was taking shape. Its true impact would be felt years later.
You see when you're responsible for the leadership of a province, the diversity of things that you have to worry about. He was worrying about the economy, he was worrying about the environment, and he was worrying about culture. Some people wonder whether President Xi is just making some of the stuff up. And I know that I heard from him personally 12 years ago, some of the same concepts.
老路既行不通又走不远，必须开辟新的发展路径，激发经济潜力，引领经济发展走向更加光明的未来，这是我们的历史责任。
The 5 major development concepts, innovation, coordination, green, openness, and sharing, become the guidelines for building the economy in a way that is sustainable and that brings benefit to all.
The success of this model along the Yangtze is catching on, and with support from the authorities, local people here are now partners in reviving the river. There are many farms here. This is Zheguo Field. Today, mulberry tree plantations are being cleared. With the fruit already harvested, the leaves are to be used as animal feed. These trees play a role in improving the health of the Yangtze because their strong roots prevent soil runoff downhill. Soil erosion is a big problem in China, but how the soil here is cultivated also impacts on the river. At the mulberry farm, they've recently switched to an organic fertilizer. Unlike the chemicals they previously used, with this, they reduce their risk of damaging the water quality of the river. So changing how people farm is important for the future of the Yangtze and all those who depend on it.
So I think this is something that he has worked out for himself and now trying to persuade the whole country to appreciate it. And I think most Chinese people do find the idea a very imaginative one.
Yangshan Port, Shanghai, one of the world's busiest ports, and it just got busier.
I feel there is a really great culture of innovation in China. The entrepreneurs I've met here have so many big dreams and they know that they can tackle it now because they've got that support.
And it's called the FTZ, or Free Trade Zone, part of President Xi's focus on using openness to create more opportunities.
在国际上呢，自贸区是一个通行的一个概念，那么它意味着高标准的投资贸易规则。主要的一个目的呢，是使得企业更方便的进入市场，更低成本的开展经营活动，更高效率的获得盈利。
One of the key ideas is to encourage entrepreneurship in the service industry. Take the case of German ship repair firm MAN Enterprises, which took advantage of this.
在自贸区成立之前，国内来说，对船舶、对国际航行的船舶进行一个保税维修这块是个空白。
Prior to the FTZ, similar service providers had to pay 28% tax on components.
对我们的船东来说，我们这个地方呢是没有这个竞争力的。自贸区成立以后呢，省去了一个进口关税和一个海关增值税，这一块呢，对我们的国际航行的船东啊带来很大的一个利益。
中国建立贸易自由区，顺应了世界的潮流，我们称之为3化了：贸易自由化、投资自由化、服务贸易便利化，吸引各方进入中国投资。
The open policies stimulate the push into high-value services from low-cost manufacturing.
自贸试验区它整个在上海的这个土地范围啊，是占了我们上海的1/50。 但它对我们上海的经济贡献达到了1/10。
Around 47,000 companies were set up in the FTZ over the last 3 years.
In terms of openness, China is the largest trading partner and also the largest foreign direct investor in many, many countries around the world. So clearly has a big footprint in terms of its openness agenda.
A culture of openness is infectious. Its impact is beginning to be felt by more than 500 million people in China today.
They're moving away from trade and investment into more consumption so that they can be much more like Western societies, closer to 70% of GDP from consumption.
China is, approaching the leading edge of development in a number of industries. I mean, perhaps the most outstanding example is in all the internet industries.
And central to this are the new tech companies. Shenzhen in southern China, a very modern, ever-changing, technology-driven city. And home to one consumer revolution. It's exactly the kind of innovation that Xi Jinping wants to encourage.
You notice this everywhere that you go in China. People have this love affair with the smartphone. Really, they use it for so many things, and it's not just as a phone anymore. It does so much more than that.
Running through China's economy is an invisible network of financial transactions. It's become indispensable to millions here who use it every day, especially these young people on their way to work in Shenzhen. They're all using a clever smartphone app that could soon replace cash altogether.
不过了，谢谢。
They're all software engineers for the IT company Tencent. Gao Yi, Ma Dan, and Zhan Yang are part of the team that runs the WeChat Pay app. It was launched in the summer of 2013.
微信支付呢刚刚成立，只有就是几十个人的团队，到现在变成了几百个人。
These few hundred software engineers now serve well over 600 million active monthly users in China and across the world.
规模优势和我们创新优势结合起来，又形成新的先发优势。
Zhou Jun is WeChat Pay Technical Director.
人们的日常生活中，方方面面都在用着微信支付去做结账，生活变得非常的便利，出门再也不用带现金，也不用带卡了，只要一部手机就可以走遍生活的各个角落。
What I think is impressive about China is the fact that innovation suddenly becomes an agenda, just moves so rapidly into that space.
China gave up the bicycle with the arrival of the car in the 80s and 90s, and now it's gone back en masse to the bicycle, but now in the form of bike sharing.
Bike sharing showcases a new trend in sustainable lifestyles. Even urban planners in China's fast-growing cities are using design to solve some challenges.
They've made rapid progress in this area. Very dynamic in the space of less than a decade, much less than a decade. You know, they've gone from 47, 48% of the economy being in services to 53%. That is a rapid change.
Across China, a team led by Professor Yu Kongjian is modelling effective ecological solutions.
我的一个理想，就是要形成一个海绵国土，不光是一个海绵的城市，要回到人跟自然和谐的、人跟水和谐的这种状态。
It works like this. First, natural wetlands are preserved. Second, concrete floodwalls are replaced with earth terraces cut into the riverbanks and native plants are cultivated.
向农民学习，像农民种地一样梯田。中国的梯田实际上是涵养水源、自流水的一个最好的方法。
The plants and soil act as sponges, absorbing the overflow as the river swells during rainy seasons. This also has the effect of replenishing groundwater sources, allowing the availability of water for other uses. Known as the Sponge City concept, the initiative is being rolled out in 16 cities across China.
这个绿色发展，我们形象的讲，就是对未来进行生态资本投资，积累生态财富。
In order to ensure such sustainable development, China is working on creating a blueprint for smart megacities all across the country. Cities like Beijing have grown exponentially, far too fast for public services like transportation, hospitals, and schools to keep pace with their growing populations. Urban sprawl like this affects not just Beijing, but cities across the entire country. What's the solution? Smart urban planning on a massive scale.
习近平总书记呢，尤其提出“十三五”时间，我们要有五大的新的发展理念：创新、协调、绿色、开放、共享。
I would put it as his favorite is the coordinated integration of all of these.
It's called Jingjingji for Beijing, Tianjin, and Ji, which is a name for Hebei province. This is a flagship project. The goal is to regenerate this part of northern China.
在京津冀这个地方，就不协调的问题是比较突出的，就经济发展不协调，然后大城市病，包括环境雾霾等等这个问题呢，在京津冀这个地方呢是比较突出的。
Beijing will remain the political and cultural epicenter. 150 kilometers east, Tianjin will become the shipping and trading hub, while Hebei province to the south will become the national base for logistics. In Tongzhou, in the east of Beijing, a brand new project is under construction. This will become Beijing City's subcenter and will relieve the pressure on the current city center by taking over some of its administrative functions. Master planning a single city is challenging. Now imagine master planning multiple cities simultaneously and doing it all from scratch. That's a really uniquely Chinese problem.
Other people in other areas talk about megacity, but the integrated planning of this area is one of the first practical applications of it.
Travel southeast from Beijing and surprisingly quickly, you get to the rural counties of Hebei province.
The map behind me is the Xiong County map. Here it shows all of our geothermal wells, 44 production well and 24 reinjection well. Geothermal is a new, clean, and stable renewable energy. We use this clean energy to supply space heating for local people.
Its energy is extracted at heat exchange stations like this and transferred to a network of pipes that supply people's homes.
Though the population of Xiong County is 300,000, we have used the geothermal space heating to cover more than 95% of the county.
And that saves coal. In fact, 7,958 tons every year for this station alone. Successful pilot projects like this one at Xiong'an New Area hint at the possibility that Jingjinji could become a model for sustainable urban planning worldwide. Planning and building new megacities as part of an economic zone that looks towards the future. And the key word here is integration. New integrated transport systems ensure that commuters never have to travel more than an hour to work. Boasting 7 runways, this brand new airport will service Tianjin and Hebei and will also complement Beijing's existing international airport.
那么在京津冀的核心这样一个三角形的四星合一、从垂星重星的地方，你会发现它正好是北京新机场。所以，通过它一个集散功能的国内的交通中心的这么一个功能的发挥的话，它更好的能够服务于京津冀的这样一个区域。
Extending over 2,600 hectares, the airport will be at the heart of the region's new integrated transportation network.
北京新机场作为第一个真正意义上的大型综合交通枢纽，它通过对高铁、高速、城铁、地铁等多种交通方式的整合，以和高效的集散，那么能够形成1小时、2小时、3小时的这个交通范围，更好的服务更大范围内的旅客和公众。
I think that there are many cities in the world that need to do this, and they'll be watching to see what China does, how it develops it, and as it develops, I think it could be a good model for other places as well.
Their estimates is that they will have approximately 20 cities by 2020, which will have at least 10 million people each. That's plumbing. It's a massive investment in buildings and in road infrastructure, etc.
整个京津冀协同发展呢，其实是按照我们新的5大发展理念来指导的。
Essentially, what he's saying is that if we're going to look at comprehensive development in China, it requires an integrated approach as well as the rule of law.
The pace that China has developed over the past couple of decades has brought with it significant challenges. A legal system only works if ordinary working people have real access to justice.
In the past, Chinese law has been more vague and more susceptible to the rule of individuals, especially party leaders and at local levels who can intervene whenever they wanted to with the local judges or the local system because those local judges reported to them.
要全面建设小康社会，我们就必须全面深化改革，不改革没法建设小康社会。但要全面深化改革，就必须全面依法治国。司法改革是全面推进依法治国的一个重要内容。
Fast-tracking trials for minor cases and simplifying paperwork for litigants in civil cases. There's a new emphasis on the law being transparent, with trials, verdicts and punishments all posted online and available for sharing via social media. And for the first time from 2017, people can bring cases in the public interest, where the environment, natural resources or food and drug safety are at risk. One of the most interesting reforms is circuit courts for trying civil cases. That involves the judges leaving their courthouses and going to the remote, far-flung destinations where the people are. It's a new way to access justice. Judge Rao Zhao Fun and her assistants travelled to conduct a trial in a remote village in Hunan. The case is between two villagers involved in a road traffic accident. Plaintiff Zhou Jianbin was injured and is in dispute with the defendant, Liao Zeyong, over the amount of compensation.
The legal system reform took the control of the courts away from the local party leadership and reported to the provincial leadership, not the local leadership. But it's a very significant development. And what it does is it makes the whole system of reform and economy, it makes it more stable.
全体起立，请审判人员入庭。
The trial begins with some formality.
请坐下。
让法院更好的、独立的、依法的审判案件，实现司法公正，是围绕着这个目标来的。
判决的话，我只能严格依法，不管是谁打招呼，我也只能依法。
Judge Rao announces the legally binding agreement.
关于原告周建斌与被告刘志勇机动车交通事故责任纠纷一案，通过今天的审理，达成调解协议。
With compensation set at 100,000 yuan, plaintiff Zhou Jianbin is satisfied.
下班我身体还基本上还没有恢复，没有完全恢复，现在不能做体力活，反正就是这个原因上我才起诉他噻，非常开心，还可以。
现在他要建立落户了，要建立法治社会，来保护老百姓的权利。
He's made it much clearer to see where the party's role is. He's created that sort of transparency. And he's also created a political narrative which is much clearer.
我们的责任就是同全党同志一道，坚持党要管党，从严治党，切实解决自身存在的突出问题，切实改进工作作风，密切联系群众，使我们党始终成为中国特色社会主义事业的坚强领导核心。
He took the first step by wanting to clean up the Chinese Communist Party of corruption.
Another purpose of the anti-corruption campaign is changing the status quo. Why is the status quo the status quo? It is because some people want it to be that way because they benefit from the status quo.
应该说，腐败的危害是非常大的。它不仅仅是造成了大量的经济损失，破坏了社会风气，而且腐蚀了我们党执政的合法性。
This is kind of surprising stuff because we're talking about content that deals with corruption, and frankly, this is not a subject matter that you'd expect the government would be willing to talk about, but they are, in a very public way. Always on the Road, a Chinese TV documentary series, has covered many of the most high-profile cases. In China today, President Xi has prioritized addressing corruption.
从长远来看，反腐败一定会对中国的长期的发展，对中华民族的伟大复兴起到重要的作用。那么从过去几年的成绩来看，人民群众对反腐败工作的信心度、满意度、支持度都是非常高的。
Since the beginning of Xi's presidency, the number of investigations into corruption has nearly quadrupled. In 2014, there were 220,000 convictions for corruption. By 2016, that figure had risen to 410,000.
This drive, this passion, this motivation to keep working towards tackling those big problems that they want to see solutions for.
And the key task for President Xi is to keep an eye on the future and make sure the system is always upgraded.
The This is the moment when political reform starts to kind of have an impetus of its own. He's trying to lead China in bucking that trend and being the only communist country of this size and complexity that lasts through the transformation.
You have to be sure that that party and the people in it are sufficiently pure and focused on their job and not just on their personal accretion of wealth, that the system will work.
It's very rare for a country to experience such fast-paced growth for so long, and yet incredibly China's last 5 years set a new bar for a new century.
这个创新也超越了一般意义上的科技创新，这还包括所谓的体制创新、制度创新、市场创新。
In the thought processes of the Chinese mind, there's a great deal of admiration for innovation and creation and trying things new, experimentation, and being enterprising.
And it's with that spirit that President Xi is trying to transform the entire system.
He sees his mission as not just to articulate that, but to drive the machinery of this party and this state apparatus in that direction.
You can then become more sympathetic to the view that you do need a supranational state that cares about the society over the individual need, but also manage the individual.
His double centennial visions for China in 2021 and China in 2049, one being a well-off country in 2021 to a country in 2049 on the centenary of the founding of the People's Republic, which is seen as a fully developed country and a respected global great power.
It's a bold vision for the future. Stay tuned to what happens next.
The core message, I think, is the new China now is winning its battle with modernity, and that's not been true before. The rich, strong country, it's happening.